Hey guys, if you're enjoying the content I'm putting up, be sure to subscribe so you always know when a new video pops up. Now that we got that part out of the way, let's get into the video. Final Fantasy XIV is a massive game with thousands of hours of content. What I'm going to do here is break down some of the major plot points for those of you who want to know more about Eorzea, but may not have time to experience it all firsthand. This time we're covering the first part of the Sorrow of Werlyt storyline and the battle with the Ruby weapon. With most of the prominent members of the Scions of the Seven Dawn out of commission since the Crystal Exarch accidentally dragged their souls to the First, Tataru and Krau enlisted the help of Estinian to handle a few missions for them in your absence. Most importantly, hunting down and destroying the Empire's biological weapon, Black Rose. During his raid on the Empire, he runs into Gaius Van Delsar, the high-ranking Imperial who led the Ultima Weapon project until you defeated him and destroyed the Ultima Weapon. After your battle, Gaius realized that the Ascians had been manipulating them all. He left the Empire and set out with a few allies to destroy the Ascians and free the Empire from their control. The fact that he saved Alphinaud's life and protected him even after his soul was sucked to the First put him on not quite friendly terms with the Scions, but he's no longer an enemy, which is why he seeks your help on another matter. While he and Estinian were escaping from the Imperial capital after Xenos murdered his father and started a civil war, Estinian came across a new version of the Ultima Weapon, a prototype with a Garlean soldier seemingly merged with it. Drawing on Nidhogg's power, he destroys it, because he's awesome. But Gaius calls you to let you know that the Empire has progressed further with the project than he had thought. The 7th Legion took over the Ultima Weapon project, and they've made multiple prototypes, and one is getting sent to the Eorzean battlefield soon. It's called the Ruby Weapon. Gaius and Severa managed to get close enough to attack it during one of his test runs. Despite knowing how many explosives it would take to break the original Ultima Weapon based on their time working on the project, they couldn't even leave a mark on the Ruby Weapon. After they attacked it, the weapon retaliated and Gaius and Severa had to retreat. Gaius was hurt in the attack, and he won't be ready to fight again by the time the weapon arrives, so it's up to you to deal with it. The next attack on the Gimlet Dark is coming soon, and the Ruby Weapon is said to be among the group. If you don't stop it, it'll cut a swath through the Alliance. Sounds like a normal day in the life of the Warrior of Light. The Ruby Weapon is superior to the Ultima Weapon in every way, but you take it down. Gaius, having watched the battle, is impressed by how you took the weapon. But he knows if the 7th Legion keeps working on the project, the next model may be unbeatable, even by you. He gets ready to tell you what the Alliance has decided to do about the weapons, but he stops when a squad of Al-Ra show up. Aaliyah, Alphonse, and Rex turn out to be people Gaius knows very well, although he hasn't seen them in a while. They're his children. Not biologically, of course, but they are his kids nonetheless, and they are not happy to see him working with the Alliance, especially with you. And even though Ali asks him to come back, he lets them know he'll never serve the Empire again. The echo overtakes you and you see a vision of the Al-Ra as small children talking about how Gaius found them, all alone and starving, and had taken them in. They decide to fight for the Empire since that's what Gaius did, as a way to make him proud of them. And despite the fact that Recon, one of the 5 children that Gaius took in, says that everyone on Werlyt was afraid of the Garleans, the kids all decide to join the Empire and be a true family, with Gaius filling the role as their father. Back in the present, Ali tells Gaius that a lot of things have changed for them in the Empire. They've done things that they wouldn't have if they had known he was still alive, but Alphonse stops her from saying more as a Garlean airship arrives to retrieve them. Gaius doesn't try to stop them, but he wants to know who was piloting the Ruby Weapon. During the battle, a mutated version of Nael von Darnus, the long-dead Imperial who had resurrected the Meteor Project and led to the 7th Calamity, had burst out of the Ruby Weapon and attacked you. The pilot hadn't been her. It had been Melisandre, another of Gaius' adopted daughters. He can't believe that the others would allow the Empire to experiment on their sister, but Alphonse counters, saying they are finishing what Gaius started, and while they still love him and are grateful for what he's done for them, if he tries to stop the weapon project, they'll kill him. After the Garleans leave, Cid shows up to study the Ruby Weapon and its pilot. Having been taken under Gaius' wing himself when his own father had become obsessed with the Meteor Project, Cid can understand how Gaius feels, knowing what has happened to his children. Despite having ended up on opposite sides in countless battles, Cid never doubted that Gaius was a good man. And if he's going to help him save his children from whatever the Empire is using them for, then he'd better learn what he can from the ruby weapon, fast. Cid comes back with news faster than you expect, and it isn't good. The things the 7th Legion had done to the pilot were horrifying. They had fused Gaius' daughter with the core of the ruby weapon, meaning when the weapon fought, it used her as a battery. The more power it pumped out, the more it drained from her, and even though the pain had been so great that she had probably wanted to die, she couldn't, not until the last drop of her ether was drained from her body. To make matters worse, combat data based on the skills of Nell von Darnus had been used to override Melisandre's mind once they had fused her with the weapon. If they can perfect that technology, the Empire could implant the memories and skills of great warriors into regular soldiers, meaning that one day, the Alliance can end up being assaulted by an entire legion with the fighting capabilities of Xenos. What's even more dangerous is the weapon's abilities to absorb the powers of primals and icons, meaning you would have the battle prowess of warriors like Gaius combined with the powers of primals, something that supposedly goes against everything the Empire stands for. Another question, and one that is even more important, is how did the Legion get combat data on someone who died before the last calamity? Cid has a few ideas, but he'll need to do a bit more research before he can be certain. To keep him safe and give him a hand with his studies, Gaius sends Severa with him. While Cid works, Gaius plans on tracking the ruby weapon's path so he can find where it came from and figure out just what part his children are playing in the weapon project. After taking down the ruby weapon, Gaius and Valdelin headed off to see if they could find where the weapon had been sent from, while Cid and Severa worked on learning all they could about the Empire's new toy. What he discovered proved his earlier thoughts right. The Garleans had managed to force someone else's experiences and memories into the ruby weapon's pilot by creating something called synthetic auracite. The Ascians had called the core of the original Ultima weapon the Heart of Savik, which Cid believes was a large piece of auracite. Auracite has the power to store memories, ether, or even really strong desires and pour them into people, giving them incredible power, and sometimes changing their form into massive beasts. Cid doesn't know whether the Garlean's creation has all the properties of actual auracite, but we all know Cid. If it has anything to do with technology, he can figure out how it works. Something else he discovered was exactly how the Empire got their hands on the combat data of Nell von Darnus. High-ranking Imperial officers have devices put on their armor that are designed to emulate the soul crystals that people use throughout Eorzea to help them learn to use the techniques of other warriors. However, most of the Empire were never told what the devices actually did, probably so they wouldn't be accused of copying their savage enemies. Can't have the propaganda saying everything in Eorzea is bad if you're doing the same thing. That might make people start thinking and asking questions instead of mindlessly fighting people who have never actually done anything to them. In any case, the devices record the combat data of the wielders, but it's unclear how that data is actually transferred. It could be by ether, but the fact that more than just Nell's memories were transferred into Melisandre makes Cid think it has something to do with how the pilot was fused to the ruby weapon's core. What he does know is that the ruby weapon itself wasn't all that damaged in the fight, so the pilot likely died because the system hadn't worked the way it was supposed to, not from the actual fighting. While you talk, Gaius makes it back to the camp, so you take a break from all the sciencey stuff to see what he's found out. Valdelin had managed to trace the ruby weapon's path back to a place called Werlyt, where the weapon had apparently been built. Werlyt lies to the east of Gimlet, opposite of Alamigo, and it's another place that the Empire conquered years ago. It's also where Alphonse and the rest of Gaius' children were born. The Empire has built an airship supply depot in the town of Turncliffe, and based off of the reports of some locals, one of the weapons was brought there a few days ago. This brings up a few problems. Because of Turncliffe's location, the weapon will be fully operational before you actually get there. Going by sea would let you avoid some of the ground troops, but it still wouldn't get you there fast enough. However, Cid thinks it's a perfect time to test out his newest toy. Well, he's gonna bring it, and you'll be doing the testing. He runs off to get it, and everyone is shocked to see that Cid has built a Gundam. Well, he didn't build it from scratch. He had retrieved the Allegan relic from Aziz La, modified it a little bit with some Garland tech, and boom, now you have the G-Warrior. And he wants you to take it and use it to fight the weapon at Turncliffe, after you give it a bit of a test drive, of course. After a little bit of practice, you load into the suit that is then carried out to Turncliffe, where the sapphire weapon rises out of the water like a kaiju from Pacific Rim. With Gaius in your ear guiding you through the fight, you take down the wildly powerful weapon. And I hope they let us pilot that thing again. But of course, us having a machine that can fight primal-powered weapons one-on-one can't last. And it'll probably get blown up when we see the next weapon. With the sapphire weapon out of commission, you meet up with Gaius and the others in Turncliffe to watch Cid get to work on studying the Empire's fallen toy. While you watch them work, the Echo showed you a vision of Rex as he gets ready to board the sapphire weapon just a short while before your attack. He plans on using it to hold you all off while the others move the remaining weapons to a safe location, but Recon shows up and decides to take Rex's place. Rex is a far better pilot, and Recon doesn't want him to throw his life away when the others need him. After Rex spent his whole life protecting Recon, it's only fitting that Recon die in his brother's place. And if he uses the Oversoul mode of the weapon like Melisandre had, then he should be able to hold off the Eorzans. The data collected from Melisandre's fight in the Ruby weapon helped improve the Oversoul system, so he may actually survive the process. But whether he survives the Oversoul process or not doesn't really matter. His body will still fuse with the core of the weapon. Once the Oversoul is activated, there's no coming back. Rex still doesn't want to let his brother do it, but there isn't much time to argue, so he reluctantly gives in and runs off to secure the other weapons, while Recon prepares to battle you in the Sapphire weapon. Back in the present, you let Gaius know what you saw just as Cid arrives to tell him that the pilot didn't survive. Gaius gets angry, vowing to bring an end to the project before any more of his children die. He leaves, and you go to follow him, but Valdolin stops you, asking you if you believe that Gaius has truly abandoned the Empire, or is he just planning something big before he goes back to them? He suffered a lot at the hands of the Garleans and finds it hard to trust them, which makes it seem strange that he's traveling with Gaius of all people. 20 years ago, not long after the fall of Alamigo, the Garleans marched into the land of the Duskwhite Ellison. They fought back, but their weapons and magic barely slowed the Garleans. Valdolin was knocked unconscious during the fighting, and when he woke, everyone else was dead. He went home to find his wife and child, but they were gone. He searched for them for months, until he discovered that everyone from his village had been taken and used as test subjects for Black Rose, the Empire's poison gas. None of them survived. He eventually joined the Twin Adders, even though the Gridanians never treated the Dustwites like anything other than outcasts, but his desire to fight the Garleans outweighed his dislike for the Gridanians. During Operation Archon, when the Warrior of Light led the attack on the Praetorium, Valdolin was among the ranks. When the place was destroyed in the fight with the Ultima weapon, he got out, and just so happened to see Gaius limping out of the ruins. He was going to kill him, but Gaius asked him to hold off on his execution, just until he got rid of the Asians. Once they're gone, Gaius promises that he won't even fight back when Valdolin tries to take his revenge. The only reason he let the man live was because he actually believed his words, so he decided to join him on his hunt. During that time, Gaius hasn't strayed from his goal, but the moment he does, Valdolin will kill him. But that can wait until the Asians are dealt with, and Gaius won't get back to hunting them until he's dealt with the weapon project. So instead of wasting more time talking about the past, Valdolin heads off to find Severa and see what she and Cid have found out about the Sapphire weapon. Fortunately, since the Garleans left the facility pretty fast, they didn't manage to fully destroy everything that they couldn't take. There were a lot of interesting things left behind, including info on the Sapphire weapon's combat data, which came from Regula Van Hydrus, the former leader of the 6th Legion who fought you in Aziz La, but died helping you keep the Warring Triad from breaking free. A story that I'll definitely cover another time. They also discovered what you learned from the Echo, that the Sapphire weapon, despite how powerful it was incomplete, which means Cid is going to have to work twice as hard to figure out a way to counter a fully powered weapon. Your vision also lets you know that while the Oversoul mode wasn't meant to make Nell Van Darner's manifest, it was meant to kill the pilot, and knowing that his children knew that angers Gaius even more, especially since Alphonse is willingly killing his siblings just to fuel the war machines. Gaius and Valdolin head off to find where the weapons have been taken, while Cid and Severa get to work on finding a way to disable the weapons before Oversoul can be activated. While they're doing that, you go let the Resistance know what you learned while fighting the Sapphire weapon so they can prepare for what's to come. Meanwhile, at the 7th Legion's headquarters in Werlyt, Alphonse reports the loss of the sapphire weapon to Valens, the leader of the Legion, and what is by far one of the creepiest men I've ever seen. He shows his disdain for Alphonse and his siblings, letting him know that he is only useful until he's not, before sending him off to be punished. He then turns his attention to Allie, and one can only guess what horrors he has in store for her. Back at the camp, one of the soldiers lets you know that Sid and the others have found some useful intel at the Imperial facility in Turncliffe, and he wants you to meet Gaius in town so he can reveal what he found to both of you at once, because he hates repeating himself. Once you're all assembled, Sid gives you the short version of what he found. The place beneath the city wasn't just for storing the weapons, but it was important for building them too. They found the code names for 3 of the weapons down there too: Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, 2 of which you've dealt with, but the Emerald weapon is something you know nothing about, and no one in town has seen anything resembling one of the weapons being moved by land or air, so you know that it does have sea travel capabilities like the Sapphire weapon. That means that it could go anywhere, but Gaius deduces that if Alphonse wants the weapon to absorb a primal, it has to be somewhere in Eorzea, and being able to move through the water lets it bypass all of the soldiers at Gimlet. Fortunately, the weapon wasn't finished when it left Turncliffe, so it'll probably be sent to another facility to be finished before it gets to murdering stuff. Gaius knows of only 2 possible locations: Castrum Marinum in the Rotano Sea and Castrum Occidens in eastern Lenosha. Both are places occupied by the remnants of the 14th Legion, Gaius' former comrades. Regardless, they're enemies now, and Gaius sends Valdolin and Severa to check out Castrum Occidens, while you and Gaius head to Marinum. Severa wants you to blow it apart with the G-Warrior, but it's still being repaired after the fight with the Sapphire weapon, so it's a no-go for using it this time around. But Sid does have a submarine that you and Gaius can use to get to Castrum Marinum. Not wasting any time, you all set off, and I'm sure you already know which group's going to find the Emerald weapon. When you arrive at Castrum Marinum, the Emerald weapon is there and Rex is piloting it. Gaius still hasn't healed from his wounds, so it'll be up to you to fight. The weapon is stronger than the Sapphire one, but you and your allies force Rex to use Oversoul. This time he's overwritten by the combat data of Gaius himself, and the upgraded Oversoul system causes the entire environment to change to a vision of Werlyt when the Legion had taken it. Despite this, you manage to bring the weapon down, and Gaius still can't understand why his son would willingly throw his life away for this, but what's even more shocking is the fact that they were able to replicate his battle tactics perfectly. During your battle, Gaius intercepted a transmission that let all of the troops that had been stationed at Marinum head back to the Empire. Apparently they knew you'd be getting back there sooner or later, so they had escaped before you could deal with them, meaning there's no one there to interrupt Sid's studies of the Emerald weapon. Sid, Valdolin, and Severa arrive, and Sid's first genius observation is that each weapon has been getting stronger than the last, and if we don't stop them, there's no telling how strong the next one will be. Thank you, we couldn't have figured that out without you. Castrum Occidens didn't have anything there that even resembled a weapon, so at least that's something. Gaius is sad over the loss of another son, and Sid vows to do everything that he can to stop anyone else from sharing his fate, starting with having his people search the entire facility. But first, Severa and Valdolin go to see if there are any traps left behind by the Empire. While they do that, the Echo, or what I'm going to start calling Plot Device 2.0, shows you what happened in the Castrum before you arrived. Allie, Rex, and Alphonse were talking in front of the Emerald weapon, and Allie was outraged by the fact that everyone knew about Oversoul except for her. They know that they can't beat you, Gaius, and the Alliance without it, and if they can't get past you, they won't be able to deal with the primals and get the weapons to their full power. And if Allie had known what Oversoul did to the pilots, Rex believes that she would have tried to stop them, which she would have, because she can't understand why they are willing to die for this project. When Gaius left the Empire, the Garleans lost all respect for Alphonse and the others, but none of them were as cruel as Valens. He uses the conscripts as test subjects for all of his experiments, but Alphonse plans on using the weapons from the project to create a world where people won't be persecuted by people like Valens. And they are willing to die to make sure Allie lives to see it. While the years of serving the Empire had changed the rest of them, Allie never stopped being the kind girl she'd always been, despite everything that's been done to her. And with the soldiers gone from the Castrum, Alphonse sees a perfect opportunity to get her away from the Legion. She wants her brothers to come with her, but if they leave, Valens will force some of the children he has around him to take their place, and they refuse to trade their own safety for their lives. As long as they can free Werlyt from the Empire, the brothers are willing to die. She doesn't want to leave them, but Alphonse orders Rex to lock her in the holding cells. Once she's taken away, Rex confirms that no matter what, the plan is to hand the castrum over to Gaius so he can take Allie before the Garleans return. But before he leaves, Alphonse begs Rex to not use Oversoul. He doesn't want to lose another brother, but they need the data to perfect the synthetic aurosite system, and Rex is okay with dying as long as Alphonse makes sure to use the data to finish their mission. Your vision ends right when Severa and Valdolin show back up after finding Allie locked in a cell. Seeing the ruined emerald weapon causes the girl to break down crying, knowing that her brother died inside of it, and Sid decides to bring her back to Turncliffe when his team extracts the core from the weapon. Back in Turncliffe, Severa lets Gaius know that Allie is getting better, but she's still in shock, and her back is covered in welts and bruises, something that probably came from her Garlean masters, something that Severa has personal experience with. She had been born in Werlyt from a Garlean father and a local woman. His rank gave her imperial citizenship, which made her and her mother get shunned by the people of Werlyt and the Garleans alike, because unlike the rest of them, she was only a half-blood. She decided to join the army to try to get a little better treatment for her and her mother. It did not work out how she thought. Her superiors were hard on her, blaming her mistakes on her savage blood, and they beat her constantly. She ended up being assigned to the 12th Legion under Xenos, and when he lost in Alamigo, she took the opportunity to return to Werlyt. When she made it back home, she found her mother dead. She had always been sick, and when Severa had been sent off, the Garleans stopped giving her the medicine she needed. They claimed it was a waste giving it to a savage, and she didn't last long without it. With no family, and the likelihood that she'd be executed for desertion if the Garleans found out why she was there, she fled, until she eventually joined Gaius. He hadn't known any of this, and he hadn't known that there were brutal men like that in the Empire. He had always thought it was the duty of the strong to take care of the weak, and he can't stand people who abuse their power to hurt those that they should be protecting. Knowing what he knows now, he believes that the entire Empire is corrupt and needs to be cleansed. The way they treated Severa, someone with Garlean blood, is nothing compared to how they treat the Aura. They decide to go and check on Allie to see if her condition has improved enough for her to talk, which she is better, and Gaius begs her to tell him what happened to her and the others when he left that led them to where they are now. When he vanished, the kids were all assigned to the 7th Legion, where Valens eventually took over. He was a Magitech weapons specialist set to run anti-primal weapon projects. And once the Emperor died, he started using all types of horrible methods to complete the project. Rumor has it, he plans on using the weapons to take over the Empire, but Allie thinks there's another reason Valens is obsessed with the weapon project. He's jealous of Gaius. Valens had been on the list of people set to lead the 14th Legion, but Gaius got the job, and Valens was set to work under Nero on the Ultima weapon. Since then, Valens has despised everything Gaius has done and believes in. Since Gaius respected all races under his command, Valens only respects pure-blooded Garleans. Everyone else is expendable. When Gaius asks, Allie confirms that Valens is the one who beat her. He tortures her and the others constantly. Every day with him is miserable, but if they left, he'd only torture someone else, which is why they stayed. If things go as planned, when the weapon project is done, since they're the pilots, they can use them on Valens and the Empire. Hearing that his children are fighting for a world that they may not live to see makes Gaius proud, but he doesn't approve of them killing themselves for it, which is why they didn't ask him for help. They know how strong the weapons are, and despite having had access to the ruby, sapphire, and emerald weapons, none of them can compare to Valens' ultimate creation. And that was the one Allie wanted to get her hands on to save her brother. Since she can't, she begs you and Gaius to save him, although she claims not to know where he even is, although that does seem to be a lie. All of the talking takes a toll on Allie, and she's taken away to rest while Gaius sends you to report to the troops in Garabania. Meanwhile, at the 7th Legion's headquarters, Valens is not happy that Alphonse lost the emerald weapon and allowed Allie to escape. He has the man being tortured, but he's not doing it himself. He has children doing it. When Alphonse collapses, Valens decides to make him the pilot of the next weapon with one goal: kill Gaius. And he will kill every non-Garlean in the Legion if Alphonse betrays him. Of course he won't be able to, since they'll force him to use Oversoul and have his mind rewritten by the combat data of Xenos. As if Valens would be able to control Xenos in any form. Even Elidibus hadn't been able to do that when he had manifested a version of the Psycho to fight you. The oversoul system for the final weapon is still not functioning the way he wants, but fortunately for him, Valens has plenty of test subjects to go through until the diamond weapon finally works the way it's supposed to. Despite all of the chaos brewing in Eorzea, the Warrior of Light still makes time to check on Werlyt, which is good because a lot's changed since your fight with the Emerald weapon, and unexpectedly your friend Monago shows up to explain things to you. After you helped free Turncliffe, the people of Werlyt put in extra effort into freeing the entirety of Werlyt from the Empire. Citizens gathered forming a resistance group aimed at taking down the Seven Legion, and while they've got plenty of people who are willing to fight, they don't have anyone with real leadership skills. So they made a very strange decision. They decided to let Gaius Belsar lead them. Since he was the one who took the nation for the Empire, the people figured he would have the skills to take it back. And while he was a part of the Empire, he was well known for being a far better person than most of the high-ranking Imperials. He took the job, and the first thing he asked for were additional weapons and supplies from the Alamegan resistance. While their hands are full dealing with everything that's happening in Eorzea, they still spare what they can, which is why Monago's been sent to meet with Gaius. And while she's no coward, meeting the Black Wolf alone makes her a little uncomfortable, so she asks you to come too. Gaius is in the middle of talking to some revolutionaries, and when Monago gives him the letter showing that the resistance will help him, he lets the commander know that it won't be long before they have the resources to have a chance at forcing the Legion out. That doesn't mean it'll be easy, and a lot of people will definitely die. However, as long as they can free their nation, the revolutionaries have no problem giving up their lives. Monago makes it a point to let Gaius know that the people of Alamigo haven't forgotten what he's done, and that he was one of the ones who led the invasion to their home and killed a lot of their people, but she will respect the wishes of the people of Werlyt. She just hopes he doesn't let them down. The commander of the revolutionaries doesn't care about any of that right now. He wants to talk about how they'll get their supplies from Alamigo, and he takes Monago off to iron out the details, leaving you and Gaius alone. He's well aware of how strange his position is. In truth, for the longest time, he had believed that the Empire was the only place that could lead the world to prosperity, which is why he had fought so hard for them. But seeing how they promoted a psycho like Valens to a leadership role has proven to him that the Empire isn't what it's supposed to be. Because of that, he plans on killing the man himself to start removing the bad mark he's putting on what the Empire is supposed to stand for. Honestly, I strongly believe that by the end of Endwalker, Gaius will probably be the new Emperor of Garlemald, but right now that's not important. Severa comes up to Gaius telling him that time is running out and he has to go after her. Apparently Allie has run off. She left a letter, but Gaius wants you to keep that a secret from the rest of the people because he doesn't want the soldiers to think that his family drama is distracting him. The letter doesn't say where she's going, only that she has to save Alphonse, and she knows how to do it, which means she's headed to the 7th Legion stronghold in Werlyt to steal one of the weapons. Severa wants to gather the troops and attack right now so Gaius can save his kids, but he refuses to make the people risk their lives to save 2 Imperial soldiers, even if they are his children. Not to mention just rushing in will get their much smaller force killed. And while sending you in looks like a good idea on paper, one person fighting an army means death no matter how strong they may be. Just ask Zack from Final Fantasy VII if you don't believe me. As sad as it may be, Allie knew what she was doing would probably be a one-way trip. Even if she managed to save her brother, she most likely wouldn't make it out. While the three of you are talking, a call comes through to your link shell from Valdolin. He's in Werlyt outside of the Legion's headquarters, and he just saw a lot of explosions followed by one of the weapons going on a rampage, destroying everything in its path. Before he can say more, the signal goes out. It looks like Allie managed to do what she said, and since the castrum is in chaos now, it'll be a perfect time for the rebels to attack since the weapon won't just be aimed at them. While the army is fighting, the three of you can sneak in and deal with Valens. It sounds like a good plan. It'll still be extremely dangerous, and Gaius wants to do it alone since all of this is his responsibility, but he's not used to having a warrior of light on his side who has absolutely no interest in self-preservation due to the fact that her body is coated in plot armor. Finally, Gaius decides to assemble the army and have them ready to attack once the three of you have dealt with the weapon. He orders Severa to put in a call to Sid because the time has come to use the G-Warrior again, so you head off to get prepared. While you get ready, you get to see what Allie did when she returned to Valens, although this time the image isn't shown through the echo. She returned with the combat data of the Sapphire and Emerald weapons that were meant to strengthen the Diamond weapon, something that Valens was extremely happy about. With the data being uploaded to the weapon, it's now at its full power and ready for Allie to take her place as the pilot. In return, Valens agrees to release Alphonse and the rest of the children, but Allie wants to add one more condition. She wants the people of Werlyt to be given full Imperial citizenship and the right to run their own nation as they see fit. Since Valens' true plan is to use the weapons to set himself up as the new Emperor of Garlemald, that too is within his power to do. And since he agreed to all of her terms, Allie takes her place in the diamond weapon. Once it's turned on, she does exactly what she had planned and attacks. Unfortunately for her, Valens had expected her betrayal and built in an external shutdown feature. Although he waited entirely too long to act, since he could have easily been shot by a stray beam if Allie knew how to aim. He tells his men to bring her out alive so he can torture her for what she did, but as her tears of frustration at being so close to victory and failing pour down her face, a new system that was installed into the diamond weapon, the Overmind, kicks on, overriding the shutdown. Then it starts firing again. Back in Turncliffe, Cid gets the G-Warrior prepped to deal with this new flying weapon. But since Gaius knows that Allie is piloting the diamond weapon, he wants to stop it without hurting her. Fortunately, Cid has made some upgrades to the G-Warrior with the help of Avelina, a Magitech engineer who grew up in Turncliffe under Imperial rule and was a friend of Gaius' daughter Melisandre. She knows about all of the weapons, and she warns you that not only is the diamond weapon the strongest, it has information from all of the other weapons as well. So it'll be like fighting Cell from Dragon Ball Z, only it's a Gundam. But the upgrades they made to the G-Warrior should even out the playing field, although Cid plans on keeping them quiet until you see it in the air, so you all hop onto the Enterprise and head after the diamond weapon. The G-Warrior now comes equipped with its own flight suit, complete with lots of new weapons and a platform for you to stand on if you have to go outside and fight. The thing is now the size of one of the weapons too. With all those upgrades, Cid gave the suit the tools it needs to capture the diamond weapon instead of just destroying it and its pilot. And since the new task is a rescue mission, he's renamed the G-Warrior to the G-Savior, which is a terrible, terrible name. With all the added buttons, it'll take you and Gaius to operate it. So he's going to drive while you do the attacking, but you won't have time to practice since you're already nearing your target. A Pacific Rim style Jaeger battle starts, and after the diamond weapon kicks one of the missiles you fire out of the sky, it was at that moment that I knew we were all going to die. But a few missiles do get through and slow down the giant mech for you to climb on top of the G-Warrior, I refuse to call the thing the G-Savior no matter what the name is, and disable the weapon. Oddly enough, when you start fighting, it's not Allie's voice that comes from inside of it, but Alphonse's. After an intense fight, you disable the weapon, but Cid's containment field doesn't hold it, causing the weapon to fall out of the sky. You and Gaius rush down to Werlyt, hoping to get to the weapon and Allie before the Legion does. Fortunately, the two of you get there before anyone else, and you see Allie stumble out of the weapon and collapse. She's still alive, and although Gaius is happy, something catches his eye, so he sends you back to Turncliffe with Allie while he examines the weapon looking for Alphonse. While he searches, he calls out for Valens to show himself because he knew the man was there. After everything he's done, Gaius doesn't waste time trading words with the man, he just wants to know where his son is. Turns out Valens is more cruel than we thought, if that's even possible. He figured out a way to deal with the oversoul problem. Instead of merging battle data with the weapon, he decided to merge the mind of a warrior with it. In short, Alphonse is the diamond weapon. That was why the machine had activated on its own. Alphonse was protecting his little sister even after what had happened to him. Gaius is a little bit upset about this and he attacks Valens with one of his signature techniques. However, since he has data on how the attacks work, Valens is able to counter it. But having fought Gaius before, we all know he's no slouch, and since his old techniques don't work, he pulls off a new one that Valens has no idea how to stop. Hearing his father fight, Alphonse reactivates the diamond weapon and grabs Valens. He then deactivates all of the safeguards Valens put on the weapon and manifests his siblings, as well as all of the others who Valens murdered in pursuit of power, before crushing the man and throwing his corpse a very long way away. Gaius apologizes for failing to protect his kids, but he promises to fulfill their dream of restoring Werlyt. Alphonse asks him to give the memories stored in the weapon to Allie and to look after her. Lastly, he wants Gaius to finish him off, because he can't keep on living like he is. Gaius agrees, and with a heavy heart, he puts his son out of his misery. When you get back to Turncliffe, Valdolin lets you know that the revolutionaries used the chaos of the diamond weapon attack to take back Werlyt. They lost a lot of people in the fighting, but they won. Happy times or not, some things are going to be difficult to deal with, like the fact that Gaius nearly lost all of his children. And while Allie isn't dead, Her mind seemed to fracture after her ordeal. No one can figure out what's wrong with her, but it's possible that piloting the diamond weapon had side effects. There's no way to tell for now. All you can do is wait. When Gaius gets back, the first thing he wants to do is see his daughter, but when Sid brings her out, she doesn't even recognize him. The doctors say that she must have had something terrible happen to her that snapped her mind, and when Gaius reveals that Allie had gone to save her brother, only to find out he had been merged with the diamond weapon, it's not hard to figure out what caused the girl's breakdown. Hearing that is a shock to everyone, because no one could have anticipated that Valens would be that cruel. But his cruelty was the thing that saved Allie in the end. Alphonse being fused with the weapon allowed him to keep Allie from suffering the same fate as her siblings. Not only that, the kids did succeed. They freed Werlyt, and to keep their dream going forward, Gaius vows to help rebuild the nation so Severa and Allie can have their home back. Realizing that Gaius is not as bad as he thought, Valdolin decides to keep working with him. Even Sid has a few kind words for the man who he had once looked up to as a child. Turns out there's even more cause for celebration. When Alphonse had destroyed the Legion's headquarters, he had avoided the section where all of the children Valens was using as test subjects were housed, and the soldiers of Turncliffe found them and brought them back. There's only one thing left for Gaius to do. He had taken the memory core from the diamond weapon like Alphonse had asked, and when he shows it to Allie, ether images of the memories of all of his children appear around the city for all to see. Allie takes the core and is allowed to have a very heartfelt farewell with her siblings that restores her mind, allowing her to go forward with her dad and help him restore Werlyt to what it once was before. This concludes the story of the Sorrow of Werlyt. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video.